right. Just a quick couple of housekeeping items. We've got a really stacked afternoon here at the Opus DNS stage. We want to make sure you guys have the most up-to-date information. Make sure that you download the app. You'll get information about CloudFest, which is happening parallel to Namescon as well. So you have access to both events, and we want to make sure you take full advantage of that with any updates that may be coming through on the app. But up next, and to get right into it, Dennis, tell us a little bit about what we're going to see next year on the
Well,
stage.
the gentleman who's talking about AI, domains, and Web3, right? Some of the key focuses for the next panel coming up are going to be tokenizing, fractionizing, and then also exploring the future of domains. So there's so many changes happening, and so many things to come up, and it's awesome that they're going to really dig deep and talk more about that today.
So moderating this panel, we have Todd Ryan, we have Chad and Andrew. Welcome to the stage, gentlemen.
Everybody, welcome to Namescon 2024. I don't know if you've been waiting for this session. I sure have. I'm Todd Ryan. If you don't know me, I'm a businessman out of Los Angeles. I have invested in domains about 25 years. I'm not going to give introductions for these guys. If you don't know them, I told Andrew, no one cares if you grew up in Rhode Island. But the show AI, Domains, and Web3, Chad and I do a podcast, now it just pop up, we call it that. So today we are going to touch on those things, fractionalization and tokenization, but we're really going to get to some good questions. We're going to go off script, but I was going to start by saying, since it is AI, Domains, and Web3, we're going to touch on AI. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but, and I'll start with Drew and then Chad, you can answer. But, so how is AI affecting your business, but domain investing overall? How do you see it?
So I'm going to approach that from two different perspectives. So, broadly speaking, I think AI introduces uncertainty into the domain space in people's minds. I think that they think about it in the same way that they thought about, the introduction of social media and what does that mean for domains? When the apps got introduced, what does that mean for domains? And so it creates some uncertainty about the future and about the value proposition of a domain name. If search gets disrupted, the value proposition of a domain name. If we're using AI agents, where I've landed, and this is obviously fluid, nobody knows, but where I've landed is that I've kind of come to the conclusion, the same conclusion I've always come to, which is that it's going to cause the cream to rise, and that is. If you're communicating verbally instead of typing into a Google search with an AI agent, then you need a clear, concise domain name that isn't prone to misspelling, to misunderstanding. Is it sale like a sailboat, or is it sale like to be sold, right? And so I think there are new considerations. I think that broadly speaking, there is definitely some uncertainty, but I basically landed on it's extremely bullish for domain names because it's going to give, and I know you'll talk more about this, you're a lot more knowledgeable about it than I am, but it's giving a new set of tools that allows companies to rapidly be created, to rapidly grow, to the more company creation that happens, the more domain names are going to be sold, period, right? So I think that it's going to create a flourishing of new company creation. That's going to benefit domains, no question about it. But there's definitely, uncertainty in the minds of some of these business operators about, we don't want to make this big investment because maybe my domain name won't be as important as it could be in a few years. My conclusion is that's likely not true, that it's going to cause value to grow and more domains to be sold.
To follow up with that, we've seen that cycle happen in 4 years in the industry, right? Mobile phones, apps,
social.
So it's new TLDs, right? So that's a buying opportunity, right? When people think the value's there. For me, I'm the complete opposite because we've been building eCorp for 28 years. So AI has always been that next, we think, almost final layer to turning URLs into smart entities, autonomous corporations. And so that's always been our philosophy. So for us, we saw blockchain come around, 5-6 years ago. We knew that was an important layer of tool in the tool chest to build an asset. So, in the domain is a digital asset. It's not an analog asset. It's not an analog asset that has no utility, or it's a digital asset, and so it fits right into the equation with AI and blockchains and these other things. And so, for us, what we see with AI and then agentic AI, which is a higher another version of AI, which is coming faster, you're going to be able to then spit your idea of your domain, your idea into the AI agent is going to basically custom build for you in seconds. And so that's going to be here within soon, a couple of years, half a year. And then that's when it gives anybody the ability that owns a name to turn that idea into an action and to an organization really quickly. And so that's the people that embrace that are the ones that are going to get the alpha and turning that lower valued asset into something more valuable. But then there's also the strengths and weaknesses of infrastructure and some other things.
What Drew was talking about, what voice command, I call it, instead of AI, I think what you were mentioning, AI is going to not only be able to help people set up the sites, but there are some options that are available, some creativity, so that could hurt domain sales. I mean, if people are really, the AI is going to, can search trademarks, or just say, really do some checking, and then not only basically say, hey, I want a beautiful site, but I'm not looking to spend a big dough. AI is going to help find it. I want to get to
Well, so just to push back on that for a second, because I think there's two ways that's probably not true, or could be not true. One is that if you can now build a company with less employees and with faster deployment, less technology spend, and less employees, then that frees up a whole bunch of CapEx that could be invested into the domain name, because your domain name is actually really your only moat versus everybody else. And then second is that, I lost my train of thought.
about why it's not going to decrease values or give people too many options. I was saying basically AI is going to be creative.
Yeah, so I think really what AI is going to do to the domain space is curation, right? It's going to provide people with better, better solutions to the problem. So I need a domain for X. And I think using some of these new AI tools, which some of the registrars are already deploying, it allows you to curate, unregistered and aftermarket domain names in a really powerful way that are going to be much more applicable to you versus just going to like one marketplace and being limited to, what are the names available today, right? It's like, no, actually, you can use this tool. It's going to curate from all the marketplaces, from all the available registrations, and provide you a whole bunch of stuff, trademark search, and a whole bunch of, say, value-added things that will allow people to make faster, better decisions about their domain choices.
Yeah, we have so much stuff. Let's go ahead.
The important part is the search path, right? Is how do people get to you? So everybody's obviously trying to get in front of the customer at endpoints with the certain things in Google, right? Sometimes even the kids' computers, like the Google controls you. You're in the browser and it still doesn't go to URL directly on the path. So that path is still being undetermined from search engine disruption to that path. So again, the identity of your URL is an important part. So you got to look at the macro. Is the URL is an identity on the internet, and so if identity goes away, well then society is definitely changing from that. So that's the way I look at it, as a unique identity as a URL. Whether Google or whoever wants to force it, I have that identity that I can do whatever I want with it. I don't necessarily have to be beholden to Google or whatever else. I can build a flower business if I want on my URL and have confidence that I can bring my customer there, my path from access. So I need a location I can, organize my community with versus the path. So we're in a bigger macro trend from how people are getting to assets.
But not all identities are created equal, right? And ultimately, legacy DNS domain names are the base layer of identity. Everything else comes on top, and so it's like it's not so easy. People think like, oh, AI's here, and we're going to just like switch to some other new naming system or new, directional system. And it's like, well, there's trillions, tens of trillions, maybe hundreds of trillions of dollars of investment in infrastructure and protocols that have been built on top of that base layer of identity. And so, replacing that is no small task. I don't really see it happening.
But the base layer still includes a lot of other extensions. I want to get to the .ai extensions. So there's domain investors here, and I'm a domain investor. So we care about, hey, I know Monty's got a, I'll tell you a story because Monty's auction tomorrow. I told my wife, I said, look through the list. There's a name on there. I'm thinking about you. I want to get it. She's like, sex.ai? I said, courses.com, or either one. But anyway, the sex.ai, I know, is there investment? I mean, what do you think? Let's just get right to it, about the .ai extension, how it's operated and investing in it. Are those big companies that you're talking about earlier, are they willing to build on these names? And how do you feel about that extension?
So, we've seen a flurry of sales in .ai, and I don't have anything against .ai. I think it's a great extension. It obviously says what it means, and that's really what you want in the domain name. I guess my issue with .ai is twofold. One is that I think the investor prices at this point have gotten so high that I'm not sure what your upside is. Or is your upside, how is your upside relative to an investment into, Break.com, from an expiry option, whatever. And so, I think that the spread on .ai has been compressed because I think that investment prices are too close to end user prices. And then the second part of that is probably a little bit more speculative, is that I just don't see where there's going to be thousands or tens of thousands of new companies emerging that should use a .ai. Doesn't mean they won't, but they should use a .ai. I think we're very close. We're 2 years out, let's say, and that might even be, conservative. 2 years out from AI just being ubiquitous in everything, from food to every aspect of technology. AI will be there. It will be in some capacity involved in every business, and if it's not, that business likely will not survive. And so, if that's the case, and AI is ubiquitous, then I'm not sure why a company needs .ai, because it's already presumed, and it's already ubiquitous. And it's like, Google doesn't need to be Google.search, because everybody already knows what to do, right? And that's just redundant. And so, I think most businesses, for some businesses, I think it makes sense. And if you are a tool, then I think it makes a lot of sense. But if you're just like a consumer product or a consumer service, and you are just, I think most of the people doing it now are doing it to try and get hype, or because it makes it easier to raise capital, because everybody wants to throw, you've got a mandate to put investments into AI. And so if you're .ai, well, it must be AI, here's a check. So, but I just don't see that as a sustainable trend. I think that if you look out 5 years, there's, 100, let's say 500 conservatively, companies that are like true AI tooling companies, and for them that makes sense, but that's a pool of 500 buyers, let's say 1,000, and you've got every single day tens or hundreds of these things trading hands at very excessive prices. Who's going to be the buyer? Where are the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of companies that are going to be buying those names at hundreds of thousands? People are pricing these in the 6 and 7 figures. Like, I just don't know who those buyers are.
Yeah.
I know, look at it, if you get an exact match AI, it's a product, attackers.ai, we happy to buy that one for costs and stuff like that and use it to build a business, but you have to be closest to your customer. And if your customer is an AI-focused customer base, and they're going to go to that AI, great. But most of the time, humans go to .coms, right? So they fall back to what they know. And so if you're not as close to your customer, you're, like you guys mentioned earlier, you're second fiddle. You don't own the brand. So I think there's opportunities, and that's good. But I think long-term sustainability, it's another asset that is. But I look at it as a macro. I look at all domains as one asset class. AI is just another new kind of identity. So.
Yeah, I'm dying to, we're going to get to fractionalization because we said we were going to talk about that tokenization a little bit. So I'll get to it now, but I have a better question. But I was going to say the fractionalization. So I was talking to Chad. Chad's like, there's no fractionalization without tokenization. He was talking about it in the way that he was looking at it. And so that should be a subtopic. He's telling, under that. but you're fractionalizing names right now through Rally Road. We know people have sold fractions of domains, small partnerships, but you're doing it now through Rally Road. You started with directions, there's Hotspot, MJ, but tell us, really tell us, my question is, how is that helping domains become an asset class? Because we're going to branch into that, but what is happening over there with those three deals? I mean,
Yeah, so it's a great question. So a lot of people don't understand, I guess, where I'm coming from, why this is important. So, for one, I think that most domain investors would be better off buying a share of a, let's say, known super premium domain. Obviously, everything's price relative and price sensitive, but let's say if it's being offered at, a fair market price for an investor, I think that most investors are going to be better off allocating, the $5,000, $10,000, $100,000 a year into fractional shares of really premium domain names that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to buy, rather than buying up, hundreds or thousands of, closeouts and let's say punts, buying these domains like, well, $100, I think it's a great deal. Maybe, but your probability of selling it is like 1 in 10,000, over a 10-year period of time. So I think that the term, sell-through rate, the downside, the risk-adjusted return on buying a share of a super premium domain name is a better investment, in my opinion, than, taking a punt on a whole large portfolio of, mediocre or subpar domains that are literally just like taking a punt. It's a lottery ticket. Second to that is, if we talk about domain names as an asset class, I always said it. I always said, oh, domain names, but actually what I came to the conclusion was, in speaking with people in the financial world, domain names aren't an asset class. And it's not an asset class and never will be until people understand how to value them, right? So if you can't get leverage, if you can't get insurance, if you can't get an index, then it's not an asset class because people can't invest into it. And so we can have hobbyists, and ultimately even the guys who are doing this full-time professionally, ultimately it's like we're basically hobbyists. We're in a niche market. We're kind of, I don't know, 200 people here, right? Like that's not, the bond market's, hundreds of trillions of dollars. This is a very small, niche, esoteric market, and we need a bank to be able to say, okay, I can mark this domain to market. And so with Rally Road, we take an MJ.com, we take it public, it's locked up for 3 months, and then the shares are able to be sold. And I can go to the bank and say, hey, listen, I've got XYZ number of shares of this domain name, I'd like to take a loan against that. And the bank can go to a publicly available market that's SEC approved, and they can say, yeah, there's a mark-to-market price for that domain. The price of that domain is floating in a fair market, and I can get a mark-to-market price, and I can give you a loan at whatever it is. Maybe it's a 30% LTV, maybe it's a 70% LTV. But they can give me a loan against the mark-to-market value of that asset, and you cannot do that without fractional ownership. So